Folks, we've got a great panel for you today. We're going to be talking everything about C-stands, knots, lighting technicians. What's the difference between a CLT or a SLT, a gaffer, a rigging gaffer, a dolly grip? All these wonderful things that, as I was told, one department blocks the light, the other department brings the light, and today we are going to talk to both the light bringers and the light takers. We've got a really great panel for you today. But before we do the wonderful introductions, I'm going to do an introduction myself. If you don't know who I am, that's okay. I'm still trying to figure it out too. My name is Charles Elmore. I am a filmmaker and a co-founder of the Tulsa Film Collective. The Tulsa Film Collective is a nonprofit organization that's dedicated to advocating and promoting and supporting film literacy as well as film production and the film community in Oklahoma, especially Tulsa, Oklahoma, where a lot of us came up and built our catalog, I guess. I don't know. What's a catalog? Anyways, I want to thank our sponsors for generously and graciously supporting this series of conversations. Citizens of Sound, who are providing our lovely video and audio recording services. This will be recorded and eventually put on as a sort of podcast for other folks who aren't able to attend, to have opportunities to listen to the information that's shared today. So Will Rutherford with Citizens of Sound and his wonderful team are generously supporting us in that side to get us going. Crazy Eagle Media is another supporter, as well as Tulsa Artist Fellowship. This is a wonderful Tulsa Artist Fellowship facility, the flagship, and they've generously allowed us to be hosted here, as well as the Tulsa Film, Music, Arts, and Culture Office, which colloquially is called Tulsa FMAC. So we want to thank all of them for their generous support and their gracious support of this community and support of all of us. So without further ado, thank you for attending. Let's kick it off. So we've talked about camera, we've talked about hair and makeup, we've talked about production design and how do you get an actor to hold an item that we always hold every day, but also repetitively keep it in their hands every scene. And we've also talked about other things in the production world like freelancing, but this panel, today we're going to be talking about specifically the ins and outs within the grip department and the lighting department on the call sheet in a production. And like everything in production, whether it's a commercial or a short film or a narrative or elevated episodic streaming, they all have at least hopefully at some point, a grip and lighting department. Otherwise, everything's just underexposed or, people are falling off of buildings. And so we're going to talk about a lot of interesting stuff that these gentlemen and other non-gentlemen's do, because there's more than just gentlemen's in the grip and lighting department. And there's a lot of great perspectives on that. So we're going to hear from all of them. But first, let's hear from this gentleman to my left, Mr. Tyler. Why don't you kick us off? I'm going to give you the mic. Get that mic away, Steve.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tyler Plant. I'm the owner of Westling Grip here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I want to say thank you for coming out. There's more people that care about G&E than I anticipated, so that's awesome. Like I said, my name is Tyler Plant. I'm the key grip of the sensitive kind.
Technically called the lowdown, but yeah, what else have you done, Tyler?
Well, I did the pilot reshoots for the sensitive kind. Mostly the sensitive kind. No, I started out, I've done Disney Imagineering stuff for Disney Cruise Line. We did Marvel stuff. We did stuff for Star Wars. We've done a lot of smaller Lifetime movies. I've done everything from $5 movies to $50 million budgets. Yeah. So what I got. Okay.
I'm going to add one more question to this. When you're doing your introductions, just so you don't have to be prompted, but go ahead and give a brief kind of what got you into the business, kind of what drew you into the grip department or the electric department, as well as, a couple films that you've worked on, because people want to hear all the great works that you've worked on that they've seen or that maybe, they're going to hear about later on.
Sorry, I'm not good at public speaking, and I'm a grip, so I'm not good at reading either. So, Anyway, I was one of those kids, grew up in small town Oklahoma, like 600 people in a town called Waurika. We have a flashing light, and that's about it. But anyway, growing up, I was, finishing up at high school and didn't really know what I wanted to do for a living. And I had the DVD box set when they used to sell DVDs of Pirates of the Caribbean, and they had like a 3-hour bonus feature. And I remember watching that, and I was like, wow, I don't know what that is, but I would like to do that. So I had in my mind that one day maybe this would happen, but I went and got a real job because I'm from a small town. Things like that don't happen to me. But went out and was a pipeline welder for a little while, saved up enough money to just take a year off and chase this thing we call film. And I'm about 9 months into it, and 100 applications and phone calls to TV stations, and nobody would do anything. And Netflix came to my small town of all places to film a documentary called Pandemic. And I was a PA for like 3 or 4 weeks while we just went around my little hospital, and I went and got releases. And there's a great guy in the sound department in Oklahoma named Grant Province, and I'm sure if you guys get the chance to be on a film set somewhere in Oklahoma, you'll get the chance to meet him. He's a phenomenal guy, and he left his boom mic in the parking lot of that hospital, and he called me at like 2 a.m. He's like, "Hi, I have a shoot tomorrow. I don't know what I'm gonna do." So I was like, "I'll get in the car and bring it to you." So I drove hour and a half, dropped it off his front door, and he goes, "I'm gonna get you on a feature." I was like, "Oh yeah, I made it." That's so awesome. Well, 8 months go by, I don't hear from the guy. And so I'm like, well, there goes that. At least made me happy for a moment. But I got a phone call, and they're like, "Hey, we're looking for a G&E swing in Tulsa." And I was like, "I don't know what that is, but sign me up." So I came out and got paid $110 a day and paid for my $150 a day hotel room, and did that show, and met a grip crew out of California. And the key grip, I don't think liked me that much at the time, but the best boy, his name was Polly. And he said, I think you could do this, you got the mind for it. So you want to do this for a living, let's go. So they took me on the road, and I did movies all over the country, and ended up moving out to California. And he retired, and the key grip that didn't like me said, "Well, you're it, kid." So I was 20 years old, best boying on the Disney lot in California, just thrown to the fire, and making a lot of mistakes along the way. A lot of mistakes. But that's kind of how I got into it. And a couple years in, moved back to Oklahoma because of COVID, and just started keying little projects out here, and it just snowballed to more and more and more. And then I started Westland Grip because out there you have all these great companies like Killer Grip Company and all these guys. Like, it's not a rental house, it's a brand. It's like a motorcycle club. Like, if you want a good grip, you call Killer, or you call, so and so. So I kind of wanted to do that out here, where there's a group of guys where you're like, I want the best, I want the nicest, I want, everything. So I just kind of wanted to do that out here, and make it happen. And we've been very fortunate, very lucky to do some really great projects with really great people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and Steve. So no, that's kind of where I've come from and where I'm at currently, and hopefully we can continue to grow and make this community amazing. There's a lot of really good people, and you don't have to be an a-hole like some people are. Like, that's the big thing about this business, is just be genuine, be nice, and it'll take you much further than your abilities. So that's all I got to say.
Great answer. Thank you, Tyler. Mr. Steve, you want to tell us about your brief early career that's only 5 years?
Well, this is my 50th year. So I would expect that I've been doing this longer than just about anybody in this room's been alive. I grew up here. Grew up in a small town in eastern Oklahoma, Poto, and then Okmulgee, which actually we shot res dogs in, which I worked on, and ended up shooting on my street. And I can tell you this, when I left Okmulgee, I never imagined that I would be back working on a film, but I was. So I moved to LA because I couldn't wait to get out of Oklahoma, because it was in 1976, very conservative, and there was no film industry, and that's what I wanted to do. I've always known that's what I wanted to do. So I got to LA on a Friday, went to Disneyland on Saturday, and started working for free on a movie no one's ever seen called Goodbye, Franklin High. And I worked for free for a week, and they liked me, and they hired me. And the DP went on to do Halloween and The Fog and Escape from New York, which I did. And then I decided to start gaffing, meaning being head of the lighting department, in 1985. So what's that? 40 years. I've been doing it as the head of the lighting department. I've done some movies I guess you've heard of: Mrs. Doubtfire, Thor Ragnarok, Minari here in Tulsa, which is an awesome movie if you haven't seen it. Interestingly, I made less on Minari in salary than I did on the first job I did as a gaffer in 1985. I don't know exactly what that means. I wanted to do the movie, is why I did it. But it was sort of odd to make that little salary. But anyway, I've been doing this for a long time, and I just want to say that I hear a lot of excuses from people about why they aren't in the film business or they're scared to try. They live in Oklahoma. Well, shit, man, I grew up here. Tyler grew up here. I guess did we all grow up here? Maybe.
Kevin, did you grow up here?
Pittsburgh.
You're the
Pittsburgh.
outsider.
Well, it's the same thing. It's a non, it's not a market that you would expect to succeed in film in. That may not be true now in either town, but back when I was born and growing up, there wasn't anything going on in Oklahoma. You had to go to LA. Now you don't have to go there, but in fact, I guess everybody's leaving Los Angeles. But I lived there 40 years, just under 40 years, and it was great. It's a great business. You get to travel. I've done 5 movies in Australia, New Zealand. I've done movies just all over the country, and had some great adventures. Getting shot at in the Dominican Republic, working on a glacier in northern Canada, spending a week at 20 below zero, which I could tell you it's fucking cold. I bet I spent $2,000 on cold weather gear, and this was 30 years ago. So anyway, it's been great to be in this business. Brought me here for the 4th year in a row and 5th out of 6. So I'm sort of almost a Tulsa. But anyway, that's my story.
Excellent story. Thank you, Steve. Before we get to Jeremy, I do just want to point out, Steve downplayed a lot of the films he's worked on. I'm just going to go down a list because he basically lit your entire childhood. He was the gaffer on Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Glory, Career Opportunities, great Frank Whaley movie. The Rocketeer, Medicine Man, great Lorraine Bracco movie. Patriot Games, Mrs. Doubtfire, I've never heard of that. Clear and Present Danger, 9 Months, great Julianne Moore movie. Romeo and Juliet, my personal favorite. The DVD extras on Romeo and Juliet show some of the wild stuff that Steve and his team had to do to make that movie, and Baz Luhrmann's dream and vision. Was that Don McAlpine as the cinematographer? Yeah. Anyways, Stepmom, Liberty Heights, All the Pretty Horses, Moulin Rouge. Anyways, that's just the 90s into the early 2000s, and it keeps going. He did X-Men Origins Wolverine, so we have him to blame for Ryan Reynolds. Love and Other Drugs, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, End of Watch. Anyways, the dude he's got some knowledge. Jeremy, you've got some knowledge too.
Yay. So I haven't done any of that. My name's Jeremy Dippolito. I'm from Oklahoma City. I went to high school in Edmond, was kind of involved in the theater there and building sets and doing the tech stuff, stagecraft, they call it. And I left high school and went to University of Central Oklahoma. Thought I was going to do that for a living and go to Broadway, and hated it. So after 2.5 semesters, I dropped out of school and got a job making pizzas at the Hideaway. Woo! And there was one year I was at some family function, and I was talking to my grandma, Momo. And she said, when are you going to stop working at the restaurant and get a career, a real job? I said, I'd love to, Momo, but I don't know what to do. She goes, well, you're always talking about movies. Go make movies. I said, Momo, it's not that easy. I can't just go make movies. And she goes, well, I hope you can figure it out. And I said, thanks, Momo. I appreciate the talk. And I went to work the next day, still thinking about that. I was talking to some of my coworkers, and this girl named Sarah McCombs, who ran the Dead Center Film Festival for a little while. This was before that. She was just a coworker of mine at the Hideaway, and she goes, "Well, Oklahoma City Community College down the south side of the city, they have a film program. You could try that." And I was like, "Do they really? Okay." So I went down there the next day and I checked it out. And I went down there the next day and I enrolled, and I spent 15 years getting a 2-year degree. Legitimately finally just got my degree last year because I went to school, and the first equipment day, they opened up the closet, which was about this big, full of lighting gear. And they were like, "Here it is. What's everybody know how to do?" And I was like, "Ooh, I remember those lights from theater. I know how those work." So I plugged a couple lights in. 2 weeks later, I was the lighting guy at my school, so I had to learn a lot quick. And I just kind of took to it all, really sort of, I guess, had an aptitude for it. And honestly, I've done 2 features not in the grip department, and the rest of my 17-year career has been gripping. That's all I do. It's all I know how to do. Forgot how to read a long time ago. Numbers are still tricky. But yeah, since then I got out of school at a really good opportunity. The reason it took me 15 years to get the degree is because I just started working, and I couldn't take a semester off to go back to school because I was just working, doing commercials, doing features, doing some features. My first feature in the grip department it was a 4-week feature, 20 days. I made $50 a day. Our last day on that show was a 22-hour day. The sun started coming up, and we were shooting outside at night, and we all went, hey, sun's coming up. We're almost done, you guys. This is going to be great. And the boss came over the walkie-talkie and said, "How many 20 by solids do we have? How big of a black box can we build to continue shooting for several more hours in the daytime?" And so we did, and I made $50 for that one day. So there's a lot of dues to be paid, but once you do, I love it. I can't imagine doing anything else. I've done 30-something movies since then, everything from $50 a day to Killers of the Flower Moon and Twisters. And it's everything in between, crappy little horror movies. I actually saw the first movie I ever worked on called The Hunt. Terrible little movie that we did in the woods through my college. And it was on just regular TV the day before I left to come work on The Sensitive Kind. And I was like, whoa, that's a full circle. That's cool. That's weird. And so, yeah, my entire career has been, I've lived in Oklahoma my whole career. Crews come in from LA and try to take me to LA, and I just don't want to go to LA. I want to do it here. This is where I live. This is where I love. This is where I want it to be. And so I've worked really hard my whole career to just stay here and try to do whatever I can to keep film thriving here. And I love that guys like Tyler are here with the Westland Grip, and guys like Steve have come back, and new people are coming up like Madison and Jake, who you'll learn about in a minute. I love the whole community here, and I get so many people come from California and talk about how like this crew here is such a family. That's all I ever hear about. It's like, man, you guys, there's no one bickers, no one fights, there's no one yelling at each other. And apparently that's pretty common in other markets. So it's one of the things that I love about it here. And I could honestly go on and on for hours, but it's already gotten boring, so I'm going to stop. But yeah, I love it here.
We bicker. It just gets handled really quick.
There's some whisper yelling.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah. It's like a foster home kind of bickering. We're also, in addition to all the other questions I've gone ahead and asked you to do while you're doing it, I'm just going to add one more. I think you guys, Steve and Tyler, you guys already did it. And Jeremy, you kind of introduced yourself as a grip. You also do dolly grippage stuff too. But as you go down, also kind of introduce what your title is and your role is generally, or specifically on something like The Sensitive Kind, Kevin, if you do, other things besides the lighting board. But go ahead, jump right in there, Kevin, and take it away.
My name's Kevin Matz. I am a lighting console programmer, LCP, in our current contract. I program the lighting console. Something I have been doing for 25 years now, starting off in theater in Pittsburgh, which is a very small market similar to Tulsa, even though I'm not from here. Spiritually, we have a lot in common. In theater, the lighting control, lighting programming is something that it's easy to get into. If you don't have a lot of experience, it's a low stakes game. So it's easy to get some time on it. But by the time you get into film, it's something you almost have to have 10 years experience on before anybody will give you that job. So it's kind of a really difficult position to get into in film. But coming from theater, I had the advantage of having access to that. And I started doing some movies when they came through town, when the position of a lighting programmer wasn't something that you had on set every day. I did 2 days on The West Wing. I did 2 days on, She's Out of My League, all these little shows that would come into Pittsburgh and I'd do some days on. And then I met Steve on Jack Reacher, which we shot as one shot. And we had a bunch of LEDs in cars. It was a good chase scene, some good chase scenes. If you're into car chases, watch that movie for the car chases. And ended up glomming onto a few projects with Steve. We've been to New Orleans. We've been to Vancouver. We've been here.
Excellent.
Yeah, spent some time in Guthrie.
Guthrie. Excellent.
Hmm.
Fantastic. Jake, why don't you tell everyone where you're from, a bit of how you got into this business, and maybe some of the cool projects you've worked on, or the not cool ones, because they need to know about those too.
Just the not cool ones?
Yeah, the ones like you get fired from or blacklisted.
Oh,
just kidding.
Oh, that one?
Not yet.
Okay. Hey, I'm Jake Bassinet. I'm a gaffer and lighting technician here in Tulsa. I grew up here. After high school, I followed a very pretty girl to Los Angeles and went to art school for a couple years, studying photography and creative writing, and then dropped out because that was really expensive and stupid, and kind of fell into student films and stuff at UCLA and USC. And I was in Los Angeles for about 9 years. I started out at the bottom, as a grip. And I gripped for quite a while. I key gripped, I did a lot of big commercials as a key grip, but I was always missing something, and that was the lighting. But doing so many projects as a key grip really taught me how to light and where to put lights so that the grips can make them pretty. And I did that until we moved back here in 2020. There was a small sickness in the world that happened. And we decided to get out of Los Angeles and come back to Tulsa. And I didn't know if I would work much here, but I've worked a lot here, luckily. The industry here is fantastic. The people are wonderful. Yeah, that's it.
Excellent. You want to name any, just a couple of movies you've worked on besides The Reservation Dogs or Sensitive Kind?
Yeah, I've done a lot of most of the bigger movies that have come through here. Killers, Twisters, Tulsa King,
Fancy Dance.
Fancy Dance. Fancy Dance was that was a fun, tough, wonderful shoot with Charles over here. Right there. We've done. I gaffed 5 movies last year here. Everything from a non-union $800,000 movie to a $20 million movie. We're pretty lucky here that the industry has stayed alive, where it hasn't in a lot of places. So
Thriving.
Yeah.
Excellent. And last, and certainly not least, Madison
I have
Walford.
this one. Hi, my name is Madison Walford. I'm a set lighting tech and sometimes a best boy electrician, but I started out as a grip as well at the bottom. Yep. And I had no real interest in this. I just knew my buddy Jake I've known him for the last 15 years. And I had lost my job at one point, and he called me and was like, "Hey, I need a grip and electric swing," much like Jeremy's story, or was it Tyler that was also a genie swing? Yeah. And I said, "I don't know what that is," but he said, "You'll be fine." And I went down to Frederick, Oklahoma. If you've ever been, it's awesome. It's nothing. It's west of Lawton. And I worked for 3 days on that, and I loved it. Loved it. And I came back for 4 more days, and then I never got a job after that for like a year. So I got a real job, and I hated it. And Jake called me again, was like, "Hey, I think I got something this time. I think we can get you more days." I was like, "Okay," and I quit that job, and I've really kind of been working ever since. I've gripped. Tulsa's a pretty small market, so I've gripped. I got to work in a lot of small movies. And I've best boy gripped 3 features for the last 3 summers. I don't really grip much anymore because I don't really like it. I prefer to be an electrician. But I mean, grip's great too, but I'm more of an electric girl. And I've worked on all the small stuff that's come through here. And I got all my union days on Res Dogs as an electrician, and I had my grip days from Fancy Dance, that other movie we all mentioned, and so I'm now in the union as both. So that's it, and that's me.
That's Madison. Excellent. Thank you, Madison. Thank you all for that those amazing introductions. I think what's interesting is that and this is a question that I'm going to start with Tyler, but I'm also going to give to Steve, since the two of you kind of represent the sort of departmental DHing in a way, as far as recruiting, staffing, distributing the labor, the requirements, and all that stuff. As far as it goes, getting onto set, whether you're wanting to get in the props department, in the hair and makeup department, you want to be an AD, every department kind of has a way into the department. And sometimes that way is very much relationship dependent as far as who you know, and some of it's very technical knowledge based or skill set based. And some of it can just literally be, are you good at kind of making sure trash cans don't overflow, and can the truck park in the right spot kind of decision making, which is a very important decision making process. But every department has its own sort of demarcation of quality and threshold for entry. Tyler, what are the sort of parameters, and how does one kind of get into the grip department and start working within the sort of ecosystem of the grip and department on film sets, whether it's commercials, TVs, independent films? Like if I'm just on the corner and I see a film set across the street and I'm like, I want to do what that guy's doing or that lady's doing with all those heavy stands and sandbags, like how can I go find out and get a job? Like what's that sort of process to get on sets? Oh, here you go.
That's a very good question. Like I said, I kind of fell backwards into this business. Knew I always wanted to do it, but just kind of luck of the draw. For me, you should find somebody that does this for a living and just blow them up for the rest of eternity. That's essentially it. I mean, I don't know. Just find somebody's name, look them up, and DM them on Instagram every single day. Like, hey, do you need somebody? Hey, do you need somebody? And for the most part, we have our set guys that, we're used to. It's kind of hard to bring somebody in new because you're like, oh, I don't know if, maybe he's going to trip and fall and break something, or you never know. But every now and again, we don't have enough people to fill the role, and we're like, hey, this guy or girl is eager. Like, that's all it takes for me, is somebody that wants to be there. Somebody that's nice, wants to be there, and cares about this business. And every now and again, I mean, there was a guy the other day on The Sensitive Kind. He's from Missouri, and he's been hitting me up on Instagram for like 3 months. And he just happened to slide up on one of my stories and said, hey, if you ever need anybody, let me know. And I was like, what are you doing tomorrow? You want to drive into Oklahoma? And he goes, yeah. So he got in his car and drove here, and we put him to work. And he was awesome. He was incredible. His name's Clifton. He was awesome, super eager to be there. He knew how to tie his shoes. I don't know if he could read. We didn't give him that test, but he was awesome. But I think the big thing is just be relentless and never stop knocking at the door, because you never know when it's going to open. And when it does open, there you go. Just show up, be on time, work your tail off, and be a good human being.
Mr. Mathis, what it was in the electric department, it's kind of an interesting thing because it's a little bit of knowledge as far as maybe a vague adjacent knowledge of the sort of electrical side of the world and our dependency on it. But just to be a basic set lighting technician or an apprentice, or just to get into the electric department, what is the sort of process, and what are some ways that a person off the street can find a way into working with someone like you or Jake or Madison?
Well, it's hard work for me, actually, because I don't work very much anymore, and I want people that are smarter than me. So that's why I have Kevin, Jake, and Madison all three on my career. Also Tanya in the red there. She's an apprentice. She took a class that I taught last summer with a grip named John Schrock. There were 7 students in the class at OCCC, the same place that Jeremy was talking about going. And all of those that wanted to got apprenticeships on the sensitive kind. Madison was the apprentice on Reservation Dogs 3rd season, although she didn't take a class. I guess we got your name from Jake. Is that where it came? Yeah. And got her day. So the thing to remember, it's not a very popular subject in Oklahoma, but in the film business, everybody that's any good is in a union. They're either in the Writers Guild, the Directors Guild, the Producers Guild, the Actors Guild, or what we all are in, a union called the IATSE. So anybody that's any good is in the union. They fight that here. I've had the film commissioner tell me not to talk about unions when I talk to people in situations like this. So fuck that. So, you know, I want people that are smarter than me, because I reckon that's how I got as far as I did. Jake knows 100 times more than I do about, and Kevin too, about wireless and DMX. These are all Spanish terms, I think, because I don't know what they mean, but I don't need to. I need to understand how to light the set and run a crew, and I depend on Kevin to be at the dimmer board. He likes to call it lighting console, but I'm old, and it was called dimmer board when I was young. Kevin, I talk to him on the radio. I say, turn this light off, and it'll have a number, a discrete number, and that's what he does. But he does so much more than that. He built a little dimmer board for Jack Reacher in an Altoids box. Seriously. Madison is best boying right now on Jake's gaffing the other half of sensitive kind, because we got behind. And so Jake and I are both gaffing the sensitive kind. Madison's the best boy on that. I think Tyler sort of touched on it. He's more polite than I would be. Don't be a dick is the best way to get in this business. Although I have to say, if you DM'd me every day on Instagram, I'd never call you. Honest to God, that would just piss me off. But anyway, it's the kind of business that you really have to want to be in. The hours are long and they're pretty shitty. Not on this show. Sterling Harjo is a human being and wants to work 10-hour days. And that's what we do.
If that.
Now, to put that in perspective for y'all, I did a movie called Miami Vice, not the TV show. I'm not that old, but I did the movie with Colin Farrell and Jamie Foxx with a director called Michael Mann, who is clinically insane. I spent 9 months with him traveling North and South America. And Michael's just crazy. And we worked endless hours, Saturdays, Sundays. So I keep track of my hours. At the end of 2005, I had worked 3,200 hours. I had made $10,000 in meal penalties, which means I got paid $10,000 to not eat on time. That's how fucked up that movie was. But, you know, I was surrounded by a good crew and we had fun. Even though Michael drove everybody crazy, we enjoyed it. And so that's what I look for. I look for people like Jake and Kevin, and Jake are friends of mine. They're not just people that I hire. Madison as well. I don't like to hire people I don't like, you know, because you spend 10 to 12 hours a day with them. If you don't like them, man, what's the point? You know, you spend more time with them than you do with your family when you're working. So anyway, that's my advice. Don't be a dick. And don't call me every day.
Excellent advice. Madison, I'm going to ask you this question. Steve said you're best boying now on the splinter units that we're having to do on the low down sensitive kind. Kind of just briefly talk about what that position is in the electric department, what it sort of entails, and then I would love for you to kind of talk about what that position is for you and how you're utilizing it on set, and also kind of you're sort of the rank newest member in this panel, at least, kind of
Yeah.
working and career wise, and to take on a position like best boying and working on a show like The Sensitive Kind and collaborating with Jake in these big extra heavy lifting shoot days, like kind of talk about everything that kind of runs through your sort of purview on a daily basis.
Yeah. So a best boy is basically your manager of the team, is how I see it. They do the hiring, they do they get the trucks ready, they keep track of all the equipment, they keep track of all the repairs, they, deal with production, deal with all the other departments, your liaison between everyone else. And I've done this before. I, again, got roped into it very young in my career, best boying, and I was not good at it. It was a best boy grip because I didn't know what I was doing. But I've learned a lot over the few years, and I'm working with Chris Milani, who's a great best boy, and I'm learning quite a bit. And I've never worked to this scale, such a large production. And even though I'm working with a smaller crew, it's still a lot of equipment. So Monday we will be loading in a new truck, and I'm figuring out how to make all the we have all these carts with all this stuff on it, and try to figure out how it makes it cohesive and easy to work with. Think about the things we would use daily, think about the things we're going to pull off the truck every day, what lights go together, what makes sense together. And then hiring, which, Oklahoma is not very big, and trying to find people while everyone else is already trying to staff people has been very difficult. We're bringing in some people from out of town, but we've managed to keep almost everyone else from Oklahoma, which is nice. But so that presents more challenges. There's also promos going on this weekend, so we've dried up a lot of the Tulsa or Oklahoma electricians.
So you're sending the wide net out to electricians outside of Oklahoma.
Yeah, we've got some people coming in from Texas too. The Grips, I believe, have had to do the same thing. Calling guys off Instagram in Missouri.
Yeah. I'm curious, like, because I've been a bit of a sort of fly on the wall to some of these conversations that have been happening on set, and like Steve mentioned, like we're adding more days or at least splitting off the crew, and depending on what we're having to shoot and what sort of narrative material we still owe to the production, like they're adding days to get that material based on actor availabilities and sort of schedules sort of already. And so there's conversations where people are asking, like, do you know any grips? Do you know any electricians? Do you know people who can come on and do more stuff or get more equipment in? And when you're bringing people in, especially as this sort of 1 day only or 2 or 3 days only, like what's the vetting process to make sure they can tie their shoes or, know which blue plug to plug into the blue plug or red, green, whatever. So what's the sort of vetting process sort of in that? And Jake, if you want to take this, because you're kind of,
Yeah. So when we have to bring people into a production center, from we hire locals. We try to hire locals first as much as we can. Then we hire out of what's called nearby hires out of Texas. Texas and Oklahoma are the same union, so we can work in both states. But outside of that, we have to bring people in from out of state. Like we brought Kevin in from out of state because there was not a console programmer available that could do this job. So we have to do that sometimes, and we're at a point where we have to bring people in from to fill a lighting technician role. And really, it's the vetting process is people that we've worked with before. A lot of productions will end up bringing people in, and so you find somebody. The person we're bringing in, I did Killers with, so I worked on Killers with him, so I knew him. He was available, and we brought him in. So usually, it's people we've worked with or recommendations from colleagues or friends in different locales throughout the country. That maybe the industry is a little slow on the East Coast right now. There's probably some great technicians available. So that's really the vetting process. We try as much as possible to work with people that we know are competent, because it seems like it's a lot of physical labor, but you have to be qualified really to do what we do. So we really have to rely on people that we know, that we've trained or we've worked with before.
Jeremy, talk to me about the grips, or talk to us, not me, because I don't need to know this. Talk to all of us about the grip side of this, because I know like Tyler kind of, all you need to know is tie your shoes and not necessarily read, which is technically true, because tying is a very important part of the job, because you're tying down a lot of things. But kind of, if you want to go into the grippage side of it, what would you expect of someone if they just sort of walked off the street and you were to put them on a set for you to trust them?
Well, so just to go a little bit into what Jake was saying very quickly, the union helps a lot. It's really nice to be able to just call the union hall and be like, hey, send me some guys that you know are good workers. Or if you're calling from out of town, being able to get in the union, you have to have a certain skill set. You just don't get in not knowing anything. So that makes it really easy to be able to hire. As far as non-union and people off the street, I got buddies that work construction that I've been like, man, if you give me 6 months, I'll make you a grip. Like, it's a lot of building. It's a lot of people who like to put together puzzles. We do a lot of building rigs with pipe, and you got a puzzles. They're like, okay, so this camera's on a tripod here. Okay, that's no big deal. But what if I want to put the camera in the rafters up there? That's where it gets fun. And that's where you got to have people that can do like on the fly critical thinking and be able to work with the tools that we have to accomplish the goal that we have. And it really does take a creative mind. So you don't necessarily have to be able to read, but if you can put puzzles together, that helps. Tinker Toys, if anyone played with Tinker Toys or Legos or any of that kind of stuff, welcome to Grip.
So if you're
You're going to
illiterate,
sweat a lot.
if you're illiterate but with a love for engineering, you can be in the grip department.
And I have been amazed at the level of like backyard engineering that I've learned throughout the course of this. Like a quick Google search, be like, actually, that's fine. Okay, it looks pretty sketchy, but I think it's going to be okay. Yeah, great, cool. Yeah, we're ready apparently. And you'll spend 5-6 hours, 2 days sometimes building a thing, and they use it for 30 minutes. They're like, all right, get that out of here, tear that down. Let's go to the next one. So a short memory helps too. And really just I don't know. Don't be a dick. Is just a life mantra of mine. And just don't be scared to work hard, because it's a really hard job. It is. We work hard. I was going to make sure it's on Killers of the Flower Moon, because most of the time there's a couple of guys inside and everyone else is outside doing the work. And it was hot and it rained and it felt like being that dog chained to the post in the yard. It's just like, man, I call this yard dogs. So when it rains, we get wet. When it's hot, we sweat, because that's just what it is. And it's that for 12, 14, 20 hours a day. So not being scared to work hard is a big part of it too.
Yeah, hydrate. Kevin, Steve mentioned that you built a lighting console out of an Altoids box.
Yeah.
And obviously, like Electricians and Grip, both, there's this amazing craftiness and creativeness around the job as it pertains to what the department is giving to the production. It could be rigging, some elaborate car scene with a camera operator needing to be strapped to the car safely, or it could be an elaborate sort of lighting cue of a 10-minute oneer, all of which we had to do on one night for this show. And so talk about the sort of creativity side, about just going in and finding those creative solutions, and how much of an interesting piece of the department that you get to play in, playing with that sort of aspect of it. And so much of the business now has gone away from the hot lamps and the straight electric current of it all. And there's DMX, there's wireless, there's LEDs, and so much more opportunity to play within that kind of creative engineering world. And maybe you could talk a bit about that side of it. If, there might be engineers who like coding and programming, but also the sort of sweat and dirtness of being on set. Speak to that.
Yeah, and if you are, as Jeremy was saying, a problem solver, but unlike a grip, you do know how to read and are interested in computers.
It's overrated.
Yes, lighting control is the place for you. But let me tell you guys about a story that Steve and I did in Vancouver on Power Rangers, where we had a character who was trapped in a wall, right? So, Steve, I don't know if you came up with this or Matthew came up with this, but the concept was we were going to do a row of LED lights, and we were going to move around a blob, right? That was going to be this character's blocking. And we needed that to be interactive as they delivered a line to speak and do a thing. So Steve came to me in prep with this problem, and I was like, okay, how can we solve this problem? So worked on it a little bit, wrote a custom piece of software for this show, got a audio feed from the sound department for the guy's lines, handed a knob to the director to do the blocking of this blob of light that got brighter and wider, as the voice got louder. So it was very interactive of, this character stuck in our lighting rig affecting set. And that was an incredibly interesting piece of creative technical solution that we don't see too often. And it worked really well up until in post they recast the actor and it just looked like a flashing light.
Excellent.
No.
Well, you did your job, so
But then that speaks to what I was saying of, spend 4 days building a rig and they shoot it for 20 minutes and then that scene might not even make the movie. So you got that short memory,
yeah.
thick skin.
That's actually something I'd love to ask Steve, since you've gotten it, as a lot of y'all have got to work with amazing artists and creatives and directors of photographies, content, subject matter. But Steve, you kind of worked on not just a lot of films in Oklahoma, but a lot of capital C cinema, historical famous movies that everyone's talked about, and AFI has put on a bunch of lists and stuff. But I want to talk about we live in a culture where everyone gives one person credit for these creative choices that end up on screen, or a camera move could simply be the byproduct of a overheard anecdotal remark from a PA, but the DP gets the credit for it, or the director might take sole credit for a lighting gag that really tied the room together. But would love to hear from you about those opportunities in a department like gaffing, or in those sort of below the line support positions where you've been participant in sort of helping shape the creative outcome of a project or a scene or something like that, and how even something like an electrician or a gaffer or a rigging grip kind of can help solve a creative problem that leads to a really interesting shot or an interesting scene.
First of all, you have to remember that basically all of us up here are grunts. Uh, you know, we don't hang out with the actors and all of that. It's just not how it works. In this business, most of the credit goes to the director of photography in our case. I can give you a good example. Movie Moulin Rouge. I don't know how many of you have seen it, but it's pretty wild lighting wise. It's all shot on a stage. I was doing the movie for 14 months in Australia. I was one of 2 Americans, which was interesting at times. But they brought me to Australia, and the original intent on Moulin Rouge was to do it all with white light, meaning no color. And I was horrified. I said, "Are you fucking kidding me? You bring me all this way and you just want to do this with white light?" I got mad. And I don't get mad very often, and threatened to quit. And they said, "Well, okay, show us something." So I lit a scene with color and with white light. Now, this is before LED. So you guys at home can turn a light from blue to red to orange. When I did Moulin Rouge, you had to cut a piece of gel at $150 a roll, 25 feet by 4 feet, 100 square feet. You had to cut a piece of gel for any color that you wanted to change. If you wanted multiple colors, you had to hang multiple lights to do the same job. If I wanted to light Jeremy with red, green, and blue, there would have to be 3 lights. Now it would just be 1 light and Kevin controlling the color and the intensity and everything else. But so they hired, at the end of the movie, there's a play within a play within this movie. And they hired a Tony-winning lighting designer. Tony is the Oscar of Broadway. They flew him to Australia, and he spent a month preparing this, and we went to look at it, and they hated it. They hated it, man. And it's 2 weeks before we're going to shoot it. And they fired him. I'm like, "Well, that's a bold move." And they turned to me and said, "No, you're going to do it." And I said, "Cool, I can do it. That's fine." And they said, "But you still have to work." Meaning I still had to work on the movie every day. So every day I'd do the filming, 12 hours, and then I'd go work for 6 hours with a different crew because they couldn't work more than 12 hours to prepare this. We never rehearsed it. We never did anything. I wasn't even finished setting the lights, and the head of Fox, a guy named Bill Mechanic, the head of Fox, not Rupert Murdoch, but the guy that signs off on everything that 20th Century Fox would do, walks out onto the floor of the main hall, and he said, "Man, I can see you're working really hard." And he said, "That's cool, but we're going to shoot. I just wanted you to know that I'm going to walk back there and tell them where to go." Fine. And so that's what we did. So I did the end sequence to this movie with no rehearsal, calling the cues live. I'm not sure that you could ever get a more pure instance of a gaffer doing something like that than that. The entire end sequence of the scene was shot in one take, and then we kept filming extra angles. I had no fucking clue what I'd done. I did it live, and there's no record of it. There's no the board op is just changing the numbers at my call. And I went to Baz and I said, "Man, I don't know if I can do this exactly again." He said, "It's all right. The cuts are all going to be like that. We'll never know what color was where." And he's right. That's how it turned out. But the thing with Baz is he got all the credit, and that's fine. That's fine. That's what you expect. The DP and the director get the credit. Nobody even knows. I went to see the Moulin Rouge on Broadway. I went, "Fuck me. This is exactly my life."
All your lighting cues?
And the guy won a Tony, and I didn't even get a mention. So this is what you have to expect. I say this only because we've all done this. We've all done cool things. Kevin and I lit the spaceship on Power Rangers, and it was cool as shit, man. It looked great. DP walked in and went, "Nah, I hate it, bye." And I have a video of it. That's the only proof of it, the existence of color in that spaceship that there is. So yeah, you do this knowing that you're not going to get the credit except among your peers, and getting hired again, which is a big part of what you do. You're working for your next job.
That's the reputation, not the credit,
Yeah.
not the
Yeah.
big Filmmaker magazine article.
Right. And I'll tell you another thing, vetting people, there are times when you just want somebody that can breathe. I'm not kidding, man. You just want somebody that can take 5 steps in one direction breathing, because you can tell them what to do, and you can't find anybody that's ever worked on a movie. I've heard people's brothers, literally people off the street on Moulin Rouge, because the Olympics were coming, and they were paying a lot more than we were. And we shot one day. I had 2 people, and neither one of them had ever been on a film set except me. And so that's you have to improvise.
That's
Anyway,
amazing.
Yeah, you just do it. We've all done.
Excellent. So I'm going to open it up to the audience now to ask questions, because I'm sure they have a lot of great questions. Does anyone have questions for our wonderful Grip and Electric crew that's up here? Anybody? Yes, back here. Great question. Who would like to take that off? Tyler, would you like to? I know you and Steve, all of you on this panel, essentially now with all of us kind of splintering and having all these extra little units going off with different directors and different DPs, and kind of each of those has a different style, creative choices, which also then turn into different kind of equipment needs and stuff like that. So maybe let's just go down the panel from my left down. Tyler, start off with that. Like, when is the pre-visualization, the pre-production, a lot of that creative decision making pre-wise, how valuable is that? And then when does it all just kind of become for naught, because ultimately you're just scrambling for an in the moment decision that suddenly someone says new plan?
New plan happens every hour. It seems like you get a script for the show. and you read it. And for me, I just try to see what's going on. I do not try to vision anything in my head because I'm going to be 100% wrong. It's not until we actually go on what's called a tech scout and we'll go look at the locations. And reading the script, you can look at the location like, oh, this happens here. These characters are going to do this, and at that point, Steve and the DP mainly will just kind of figure out how we're going to light this. Like, how are we going to approach this? We look at which direction the sun's coming from, what time of day we're going to end up shooting this. Like, do I need to block light that's going to be coming through this window because we actually want the light coming at a different angle for an character that's standing in the corner? Like I said, you can plan for the best looking thing possible, and then something's going to happen, like talent rolled his ankle on a coming out of his trailer, and now we got to shoot it 3 hours later and the sun's in a different spot, so we cannot do anything that we planned on doing. And that goes back to being a problem solver. I mean, you try to do as close to what the original plan was possible, but just making it up as you go along at a certain point. There's really no perfect scenario, nor will there ever be unless you're on a stage. Location work, I find much more enjoyable than the stage. I love stage work for about a week, and then it's just dark and crummy, and you're kind of bored after a little bit. For me, anyway, I like being on locations and seeing cool places that nobody will ever see, but that comes with a bunch of challenges that you just never know what's going to happen. So you can plan and plan and plan, and I love to plan, and I love it when it goes to according to plan, but that almost never happens. So just be well studied and know the tools at your disposal, and you can pretty much figure out whatever you need from there.
He's absolutely correct that nothing ever goes to plan. If you watch, I think it's on Max, a show called The Franchise. It's about making a Marvel type movie. And I watched it with my wife, and she said, oh, this can't be true. And I said, oh, it's almost a documentary on the making of X-Men Origins Wolverine, which was one of the most fucked up movies you can imagine. We had, it was during the writer's strike. So Fox executives didn't have any writers, and we didn't have a good script. They rewrote it, and they would text the director new dialogue and tell him to incorporate it into the film. We reshot $1 million scene because the Fox executives didn't like the color of a pickup. It's like, wow, okay. But you can't pay me more than scale. Anyway, you can't underestimate how pear-shaped things go. They get out of control really quickly, and it's up to us, not just us, but everybody on the crew to rein it back in. Weather, we have here in Tulsa, we have lightning delays of 3-4 hours because under safety rules, if there's lightning within 6-7 miles, you have to turn off the generators, which means no lights, and be inside for 30 minutes. So if the lightning keeps coming every 25 minutes, man, you can see that we had days on Res Dogs where we didn't shoot for hours. So Sterling rewrote a scene that was taking place, Scott Park and I were in a trailer with about 8 other people and 2 cast members, and we couldn't leave because we were under a lightning delay. We had a scene to shoot outside. Sterling rewrote it, and we shot it inside the trailer. So this is how this is what makes you a good filmmaker. Now, I just want to say, if you read an article and they start going on and on and on about Rembrandt and Picasso and color palettes and everything, they're full of shit. I've had people tell me that they loved certain things in Moulin Rouge because it meant this or that. I can tell you that I was barely staying ahead of what we were shooting, and I made it up as we went. I made the colors up. I've had people tell me the color progression is just awesome. Fuck that, man. I made it up. Some of the colors were what I could get. I wanted one color and they didn't have it. So I said, okay, well, I'll take that color. So this is, yeah, it's all almost all made up. And I just love reading articles about movies I worked on because they're always, the director and DP are always much more, what would the word be, involved in the creativity than they actually were. I've had them call me up and say, "What'd we do? I'm being interviewed tomorrow, and I don't know what we did on this scene or that scene." You all know that's true, right? Yeah, but it's their name in the article, and they might remember to mention you. I did the lighting for a movie that won the Oscar for cinematography, a movie called Glory, which if you haven't seen is an awesome movie. We made the ending up, the lighting of the ending. I had no idea how to do it, so we just made it up. And the guy won an Oscar and forgot to thank me, and I was pissed. Honestly, it's the only chance I'm gonna ever have for 1 billion people to hear my name, and the fucker didn't mention it. So you know what I did? Next day I quit. I was working with him. I went in Monday and quit. I said, man, if you don't respect me enough to thank me, fuck it, I'm out of here. So sort of a roundabout way of answering your question about.
No, it's a great roundabout. So you just took the wind out of a lot of college courses I was teaching, though, with that whole don't listen to the aesthetics conversation. Anyways, moving on. Anyone else got a question that don't take out? Oh, Kevin, go for it. Yeah.
I might have a slightly different perspective on pre-visualization. Because I do a lot of stage work, and as you guys alluded, is very different than location work. And I work fairly closely with the art department with the drawings and do modeling in Vectorworks to the point where on other shows I have done fly-throughs of space in 3D with directors. And one in particular on Tomorrow War, worked very closely with the VFX department as well to coordinate some of the time travel sequences with our lighting rig and their pre-visualization. So that by the time we got into stage, it was just a matter of shooting it. So some instances like that where the planning has gone very well on stage, and we have done modeling and we have done fly-throughs, and those kinds of situations do exist.
So just so everybody knows, so you'll have basically a plot or a map of the set that we're working on that shows where every single light that you have control of is in real world, so that Steve or whoever's gaffing can point at a light and you can control it. And that's probably a huge part of prep. That's some of the most important things that we do.
And in the course of a larger stage show, those lights will exist on my maps long before they exist on the stage. Like I'll be working with gaffers and DPs to say, okay, we need this many 20Ks on this many I-beams to do our sunset across this sequence, and that will exist on the map before we even get into rig it.
Excellent. Yes. That's a great question, because that's kind of 3 different departments talking together, because you've got the DP and the lighting and cinematography of that. If it's a special effects or a visual effects element, what sort of VFX adjacent work is going to be done, and then also your department programming the board and all that.
Yeah, and I would say that very much depends on the show. On a lot of shows I've worked on, it's been entirely the DP and the gaffer, and the VFX supervisor has just been in the back seat saying, well, this is what I have to work with.
I'm just going to repeat the question so we've got it on the podcast. The question was, what goes into the lighting specifically for visual effects lighting? Is that the VFX department that handles it, or is it something like the lighting department and the gaffer? So, cool.
Well, 20 years ago, I did a movie, not a bad movie, called Peter Pan. It's not Hook, it's not Johnny Depp. It was a $100 million kids movie that we shot in Australia for a year. It was all on stage, and we had hundreds of lights. We built every set had hundreds of lights, and we had to keep track of them. So every day my equivalent of Kevin in Australia would hand me a map to all of that. On that movie, the VFX people wanted, every shot we did, we made a map of the lighting, and at the end of the show, we presented all of that. They don't do that really now, but back then we presented all of the lighting diagrams to the VFX people, so when they were doing the VFX lighting, they could see what the lighting had been on set, because it may just be one or two people in the foreground, and it's a huge CGI set. And so as they said, it varies from show to show, but it's probably mostly up to the DP as to how much he wants to be involved in it, I would say.
You had a question. So how do you go building your team? What do you look for first? What sort of roles do you want to fill first? And then what equipment goes from there? Is that kind of the question? Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. Jake, you've had to do that a time or two. Would you like to take that, and then
Couple times,
we'll let some
yeah.
other people panel take it?
Well, anytime I go to a location, the first thing I look at is the script and the schedule, um, to see when we're at that location and what we're doing at that location. We have to know if the camera has to come through the door and sees the whole room, or what have you, or if the sun is going to be right there coming through that window when we're supposed to be right here and it's supposed to be night. So that's really the first thing. And then I talk with, we'll have a discussion with the director of photography about, and the director of the scene about what exactly the blocking is, what is happening, where the characters are moving, and then the DP and I will talk about where the light is coming from, what the motivation is, where the edge light, if there's an edge light, where the edge light's coming from, where the action is taking place, all the camera angles, and then we start to build a world inside of a location based on all of that information. I know, okay, well, I can put a light there. That'll work for this. That'll work for this. But we'll have to have something over here to work for this. So it all stems from really from the script and the blocking as to what we're doing. And in terms of equipment, that varies show to show what I'm building first. Sometimes DPs will come in and they say, I only want to light skin with tungsten. And sometimes, I really want an LED that can do all the colors, and I want that next to camera every time. It just depends. It's different every show.
How do you go about like picking your team after that? Like, your best boy or your SLTs and your board
Yeah.
operator. Like, how do you then start coordinating your department
so
based on what the job is?
Every show, my first hire is going to be my assistant chief lighting technician. It used to be called a best boy. That's kind of a slang term for it now, but the official term is assistant chief lighting technician. It's a little more inclusive. But that's always my first hire. Is the person that's going to have my back, and the manager of my team. And then I'll talk with that person. We'll go through the schedule. We'll figure out how many people we need for our run of show crew. Usually that comes from the producers. They say, hey, you can have 3 people run of show. And then I go down my list. I have a list of people that I work with all the time that I know are competent, and we have a short form with each other. We have a shorthand, and and then day players come into play. Whenever we have a big set, we may need 15 lighting technicians and 3 people in condors for this night exterior. Well, then I've got to know, you have to know the state, you have to know the location, or you have to hire a great best boy that knows a bunch of people, knows their competency, knows who can fly in a condor, who's great on the ground. Yeah.
Fantastic. Any other questions? Anyone have a question? Anyone? Yes, gentleman in the back row.
So how long? Sorry, what was your first question? Being a day player. Yeah. So.
So going from a day player, getting enough days, and then qualifying for when you decide to join a union.
Yeah, so
What's
like
that process like?
to become a day player, you have to like what Tyler said, be a guy that annoys you
Or a person.
bunch, and saying, "Hey, I'm available, I'm available, I'm available," and then eventually I'll need 15 day players on a night exterior, and I'll tell my assistant, "Hey, this person keeps texting me. We need a guy on Friday. Will you see if they're available?" That's kind of how it works. And then as far as like joining the union, it's different in each local, but in our local, it is you need 90 days uh, on set or 30 days as a permit on a union show. So 30 working days on a union show as a permit will get you enough days to join. It has to be the exact same position. So like you have to work 30 days as a grip as a permit on a show, usually as a day player or something. You have to do that 30 times, and then you can start your union joining process.
And getting on that permit list is one of the things to do to get your name noticed.
I actually have a question that I'll start with Jeremy on this, and then anyone else on the panel that would like to add to this. Jeremy, I'm going to ask you because you've been working for about 15 years. Jeremy and I think, were you on Duncan Christopher?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I met Jeremy and a handful of other grips that have been working in Oklahoma pretty consistently about 15 or so, 12 years ago on an independent film that was shot here in Tulsa called The Rock and Roll Dreams of Duncan Christopher. And since then, I've worked with him on many movies that have ranged in budget from low budget to high budget, independent to studio backed. And I think we're a couple of the locals in that regard that have worked here in Oklahoma, that have continuously worked with this community and this cohort of professionals, whether as a sort of tertiary pass-through or as consistently in the Oklahoma market. However, we are still at a point where, for instance, on this show that we're on, if we get behind and we have to double up or triple up days, we are still having to bring positions from out of state, the nearby hires, the Georgia, the New Mexico, to take over and fill these kind of surge on the system and resources that we're already seeing. We're in a point in the Oklahoma industry where people think that we could sustain 5 productions at one time or 2 Tulsa Kings or whatever, and yet the reality is we still need more people qualified, trained, and in the network to be able to get more experience or be part of this local push to get more Oklahomans or more quote unquote locals experienced and trained. So I'm really curious, we can't just keep charging for workshops every weekend or sending everyone to a JC program to be grips and electricians, but what are some ways that as the industry grows and we get more opportunity and we grow and try to tell people, we're putting this panel on saying you too can work in this industry, how do we provide for this community and for this state and train and get more grips, more electricians trained in a way that on the next show, we aren't seeing a depletion of our resources so quick, but we're bringing more of the resources from our own communities in Oklahoma and that network. What are some examples, or what are some things that you think could help build a network stronger without sort of letting the sort of pay-to-play opportunity side of it that we're sort of seeing in a way? Because you either have to know someone in the department who says, we need some extra hands, show up, or you need to be part of these workshop networks where you pay, you train, you get 3 days worth of practice experience, and then you're on a list. Or you basically just hound someone because you see the pictures that they have on Instagram, but that still means you don't have experience. It still means you're not getting the knowledge about, moving stands, setting stands, tying knots, building a flag, skinning a frame, all of those things that you just can't get experience on until you're with a key grip or you're with a guy or a person saying, do that, do this, that's not that tube, give me the other tube, that's not a quasar, that's an Orion, give me a Chimera, not a whatever. But what do you think is a beneficiary sort of opportunity to accelerate that opportunity for locals to get more opportunities on sets?
The short answer is I don't really know. I mean, I do. There's a bunch of options. I mean, these workshops are great, but I understand that not everyone's in a financial position to be doing that on a regular basis. I did the traditional, went to school. Oklahoma City Community College is a very good technical hands-on. My first day in this lighting class, they didn't give me a book or a piece of paper. They opened a door to a room full of lights and said, plug them in, point them at stuff, see what they do. So I personally am a real hands-on person. So school was great, but then, I mean, you learn more in an hour on set than a year in a classroom. So it is kind of tough to get, and that's where the workshops kind of come in handy, is because I point at Steve, because I know he puts together a lot of them down in Oklahoma City anyway. I don't know if you guys have anything going like that up here, or a more technical film school program up here. I mean, I'm not a big social media guy, but I have heard of this Clifton guy, kind of bugging Tyler, and get on social media. A lot of people post a lot. West Lane Grip posts, he posts a lot of stuff on there, just about like, we're on this project, we're doing that. What's that?
Tyler's really good at social media advertising for West Lane. I appreciate it. He was on one set, he got frustrated because a guy was taking a picture of an Apple box, but it had another guy's company. He's like, don't be posting that box. I ain't got my name on it. I got to get some new boxes with West Lane Grip on it.
But I do think that there's probably is a social media angle to get into this. I don't know what it is, because I am pretty inept at that stuff. But I do feel like that there's find your, I don't know if they're influencers, but find the people in your area that just start following local movies, or hell, I don't know how to do it. You guys probably do. I don't. I really wish I had a better answer. I wish I had you know what?
Those are
This
good
is it.
answers.
This is all you got to do, is this right here. But unfortunately, there's not just like one thing.
Yeah.
Unless I'm missing something, you guys.
Steve, you've kind of had to been doing this. You have kind of been doing this for a while, sort of being part of this sort of educational outreach to build and develop a new workforce to provide and sustain this new surge in production. Like, is there another model to kind of get experience in hands without the sort of delayed experience of the workshop series or going to college, as they continue to push for more productions to come here, knowing full well that there's the risk of not being able to staff them entirely sustainably?
Well, the state has an apprentice program of sorts, which we took advantage of on all 3 seasons of Reservation Dogs and the first season of Sensitive Kind, or Down Low, or whatever it's going to be called. That happens a lot. I have lots of T-shirts. The original name for Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and I gave the T-shirt away, damn it, was Teeny Weenies. Honest to God, it was Teeny Weenies. And it took Disney a while to figure out that might get made fun of. And that was before there was an internet. Can you imagine now? But man, it's a hard business to break into, because there's limited number of films that come here. And I mean, a good way, I think, to approach it is to find a crew, or make your own crew for the 48-hour film project. I did one of those 10 years ago now, and met some kids that helped us, and I've hired them since then. How did I meet you, Jake?
Jury duty?
Or in jail? One of the two.
Jail?
Yeah, I think it was jail in Bartlesville that
You
time.
No,
started
it
as a
was,
grip, so that checks out.
Yeah, you got caught.
season 1 of Res Dogs.
Right, I know, but how I can't remember how I got your name.
I'm not sure.
See, that shit just happens, man. We've got and I met Madison through Jake. That's how that happened. Tanya came to our crew from a class I taught. Kevin I met just as
Through Momo.
yeah, on a movie called Love and Other Drugs in Pittsburgh. My best boy hired Kevin for a few days, and I met him, and I remembered him. And when I came back to Pittsburgh for Jack Reacher, I hired 2 Kevins, and because they both knew how to do LEDs. And
We were
stuff.
interchangeable.
Yes, yes. Well, the other Kevin does the board for the Penguins, right? Or used to.
Yeah, his last film was Independence Day.
Yeah.
When they did a huge month-long rig for the spaceship, and he pixel mapped everything and made it glorious. And they came in and said, just make it green, and that was the last film he did.
Yes, there's you get tired of sometimes of doing stuff. But man, I wish there was an easy answer. Like Jeremy said, it really is about meeting people and somebody remembering you and wanting to help you out or put you to work or thinks you're smart or whatever. I mean, there's myriad reasons why you might hire someone, then give them a shot. And it mostly comes down to don't be a dick. I mean, seriously, it is the kind of thing. Jake failed that the first few times, but yeah. But anyway, yeah, I just don't know. It's when I got in the business in 1976, it was completely different than it is now. So I only know from the other side of hiring people, and I hire people that I think are smarter than me, that know what they're doing, that want to do this as much as anything. I really hate people that are just in this for the money, because I don't want to spend that much time with these people. Go work at Safeway. Well, they don't have Safeway anymore. Go work at
you don't make
Homeland.
money there.
I'm showing my age. Well,
That's okay. I appreciate those answers, Steve, and I appreciate the answers Jeremy gave. I think if there were answers, the question would not exist. So I think it's, yeah, don't give up.
We're not trying to discourage you, honestly. It can happen. Look at me. Grew up without a bathroom in Oklahoma, Eastern Oklahoma. I ended up in Los Angeles for 40 years. Maury ended up in, ended up in LA. All of us have a similar story. So it is, don't blame geography. If you want to be in the film business, you can do it. Because all of us up here are in the film business. All of us probably, none of us had parents that were in the film business, right? That's a big way to get in Los Angeles. But here, it doesn't mean shit to a tree, man. It just, it's just, who you know.
That's an excellent answer. Is there any other questions? Yes. So the question was, how important is the relationship with the DP and what they bring to the collaboration as well? Their knowledge set, their personality, things like that. Jake, why don't you kick that off? You've worked with a handful of DPs, and then maybe we can kick it off to Steve and Tyler after that. And
Yeah, I've worked with a lot of DPs. Every cinematographer has a different way they like to work. I tend to prefer to work with DPs that aren't dicks. Yeah, that's kind of my main thing. Yeah.
Steve, Madison.
I did the second Planet of the Apes of the new ones. There's a cameraman named Michael Saracen. He shot some really, really nice looking films. If you look hard enough, you can find a podcast that I'm on where I said, I never met Hitler, but Michael Saracen's the worst human being in the history of the world. He is a fucking terror. And it made my life and everybody's life miserable. And so you want to try to avoid that. But shit, I need money, I did it right then. I needed some money. Well, it wasn't money, it was hours. All of our health care comes through work. And if you don't work, you don't have health care, or it gets really expensive. And so I was doing it for that reason. And plus I wanted to do a movie in New Orleans and Vancouver. And he just terrorized everybody. And then I've done 17 or 18 movies with a guy named Don McAlpine, who is the nicest, sweetest guy in the world, never yells or anything else. So if you want to stay sane in this business, don't pick a boss that's a dick. Jake and I try to be respectful of the people that work on our crew. Tyler, I watch him on our set. He's respectful. I mean, we all get annoyed with people being stupid, but basically we try to treat everybody with respect, and that goes a long way.
And I would say the better relationship that you have with the person above you, the person who is your boss, the better outcome you're going to have on set. The better movie you're going to make is if the DP and the gaffer are not not getting along, which has happened more than once. You know, it's not going to be a fun time, and the movie is going to suffer. You know, that definitely happens. But we try our best to work through that as much as we can, and the working relationship with a DP and a gaffer is I mean, bar none. It's one of the most important relationships because that's where everything comes from that comes on screen. So
Said by a gaffer. So I agree with him, but
For me, so being a good collaborator, you got to remember, I've worked with a couple tough DPs, but after a couple of weeks, you know, you kind of peel them back like an onion, and there's more to them than just the rugged, like, you know, I want this, nothing else, blah, 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 you know, just starts going off on people. And there was a guy, a good example of this, his name's Tom Ackerman, and he shot Beetlejuice and a bunch of other shows, and he came in, he doesn't know me from Adam. You know, he probably wanted to bring his own guy in, so I'm just the guy from Oklahoma, like, whatever, you know, he has no reason to respect me, really, other than I'm a human being. But he came in, and he was real tough, and not everybody got along with him, and I just kind of stood my ground and treated him like a human being. And, you know, you have to joke. He's a human being. You have to, like, he would yell at people all the time. And what I did was he would ask for something, and I would give him not exactly that. I would give him something very close to that just to see if he would notice. And he would come shuffling by, and he looked at me after about 12 weeks of doing this show, and he goes, I wanted 216. It says 129. And I said, oh, wow. You didn't notice that this whole show. And he goes, you've been doing this the whole time? And I said, yeah. And he just started laughing. And ever since then, like, that was the breakthrough. You know, I could take everything he threw at me and then proved him wrong. Like, I don't say that you should do that all the time, but I mean, they're just regular people, and joke around with them, and you'll break through somehow, some way, and you'll earn their trust. And that's when you can really start collaborating with people and, you know, prove yourself. And once you do that, like, unless somebody's just an absolute dick, you can't break through. But I feel like there's always some way that you can reach somebody, and once you do, it's just going to open up a whole different world for you, and that'll make everything so much better.
To me, it seems like a big part of this whole industry in general is just communication, clear communication, concise communication. If you're a DP talking to your guy, I want kind of like maybe we kind of, what if we, you're gonna drive everybody crazy. I want to try this. Put a light there, please. Treat people with respect. Be clear and concise in your requests. Don't treat them as orders. But I just hate the DPs. They're like, what if let's try. What if we did this? Maybe. I don't think it's going to work, but let's try it. Like, just that to me is just communication. And it's across all other departments. But aside from just DPs talking to their people, like, I mean, even talking to PAs or locations or transfer, anybody, just clear and concise communication is very important.
Fantastic. Any other questions before we wrap it up and let you all hang out, network, socialize? Yes.
me with the orange hat.
That's excellent. Thank you. Appreciative. You should kick those two dudes down a lower few pegs and bring some of these folks up, because honestly, like, as one of those two positions, sometimes, like, the visual side of a movie, even sometimes the performance of it all, it really rests on the hard work of the grip and electric department. It rests on the relationship work of the wardrobe department. The operators have a very important role in getting that magic on camera in a way, because the operator is this physical person literally dancing with actors sometimes. And if an operator steps back in the wrong way, their actor looks wrong and suddenly that moment's gone. So the whole department, it's not a hierarchy, it's the whole sort of the circulatory system of the film production of a movie is so much this work in the lifeblood of these folks putting sweat equity into these creative decisions that get given to one or two people arbitrarily sometimes. So it's worth kind of taking a moment and acknowledging that they are part of that appreciation and hard work on stuff that we've all loved and watched and stuff. So yeah, thank you for that comment. And I'm sure we all appreciate it.
Well, one thing to remember, they've been making movies for 126 years, 27 years now. I'm not that old. Since they've been doing it, the people that make movies, for the most part, are pretty cheap. And so you got to figure that there's no one on a movie set at this point, after 120 something years of refining the craft, there's no one on a movie set. Well, there is really directors, cousins, and things like that. But employees on a movie set, everybody has a job. And you might not see the standby painter, for example. They call him the scenic now. We have a guy, and it's his job to repaint a wall if we scratch it before we shoot it, stuff like that. You might not see him work for days at a time, but when you need him, he's the only guy that knows how to do what you need done. And so everybody on the set, from a PA locking up traffic to the director, has, in my mind, equal importance as far as getting the film made. Now, who gets the credit, who gets the money, that's a whole different thing. But everybody on a movie set has a job, and mostly know how to do it and do it well. And the people that don't are gone pretty quickly. There's not much patience in the film industry for incompetence or things like that. And you can't get away with being an asshole if you're good, but mostly the people I've worked with have been nice and competent. And that's over 50 years, you know. It just, that's this business. So everybody's important. And it's important to remember that, because there'll be 200 people on a crew. And the only people you ever know worked on it are the director, the actors, and a few other people. Nobody stays for the credits, but except people that work on film. But, it's what we do, and everybody's important. So no matter what you do on a film, it's going to be necessary.
Great way to close it. Thank you all so much for attending this panel. If you want, feel free to just say hi to these folks after we wrap. That's a movie term. No, just kidding. And find out how to stay in touch with them and correspond with them, and look for opportunities if you're interested in knowing more about the film industry or working on productions, short films, or any of the other things that they suggested. So thank you all for coming out. Thank you for our sponsors, and thank you for the panelists today for being part of this excellent series. You can find out more about us at the TulsaFilmCollective.org. You can also follow us on Instagram, and we send out a newsletter periodically discussing upcoming events. We're going to be putting on an event with TCC in a couple of months. Is it in May? June 28th, we are doing a panel called I Can't Work in Film, and it's all about how you can work in film. So very much a continuation of the conversation we're having here for TCC students as well as the public. So please be on the lookout for that. And hopefully we're going to be having some more stuff down the road. And we have one more of these Pictures Up panels next weekend. We're going to be talking about, it says film production. It isn't about the soup to nuts end all be all about film production. It's actually going to be specifically about the AD department and everything that they do within the ecosystem of a film production. So we're gonna have a couple first ADs, a couple key PAs, as well as a couple other second ADs. Basically, they're kind of our traffic controllers, our time managers, as well as making sure everyone gets off a truck and on a truck at the end of the day. And so it'll be a really great conversation to talk about just the sort of management and maintenance and running of a set beyond the specialty skill set departments like camera and grip and lighting and stuff like that. So we'd love if you join us next week, or if you know anyone that's interested in that side of the business, let them know and tell them we'll be having one more session next week. And other than that, thank you all so much for coming, and have a good weekend. We'll see you next week.